What is going on, guys? Joey here, and today I have some questions. Do a little bit of Q&A action. I know it's been a minute. Please excuse this. I will be bald very soon. All right, here we go. Question number one. By the way, these questions just came from, I was thinking about like, how am I going to get solid questions? Sometimes when I ask my story, they're just like people messing around or not the most work. Like, I can't really work with those. So I just started taking questions from my lifters recently, or I asked other coaches because they're going to have like that coach sort of mind. So I asked some coaches that I'm friends with for some questions, and we're just going to kind of go through some of them here. And yeah, free keys. So question number one, does bar path really matter? Okay, it's very interesting because the whole bar path thing has been, we have like topics in powerlifting that come in and out of like relevance, or just in and out of like what's popular at the moment or what people are talking about. And I will say this, your bar path does matter to some extent, but we are humans. We're not robots. We're not on a Smith machine. You're going to have some sort of deviation from that straight line. I would say somewhere towards the top of the squat and somewhere in the bottom, especially if you're in heels. You're going to kind of see the bar kind of, if you have like one of those machines or apps that's like watching you from the side, you're going to kind of shake a little bit at the top, and then you might go down, but almost like at a slant, and then kind of kick forward in the bottom and then come back up. And that's usually happening because you're in heels, or that's just how your body feels the safest. You may need to adjust your stance a little bit. Yes, some people can get it really, really straight, but it's like, I think the amount of time that people spend on the bar path thing is like, it almost becomes like counterproductive, because like now you're not moving forward. You're just worried about something that's like really, really, it's not the biggest thing that you should be focusing your energy on. And a lot of my philosophy is not to spend all your energy on like little things that aren't moving you forward. If like 90% of the time you're moving forward, and then like all these little things, like yes, they can matter at times, but my job is to get people to where they want to go. And I try to let people know like, yo, that matters. It's good enough. Let's move. Let's get to, let's put 100 pounds on your total. Let's not stress about that so much. Because if you're safe and you're progressing at a rate that's appreciable, and there's a little bit of like deviation in your bar path, it's not the end of the world. But yes, and each case is going to be very specific, based on the person, right? Okay, hamstrings, hamstring curls versus back extension. So I had a lifter ask if they should be substituting. They're like, oh, I don't have access to the hamstring curl machine. The back extensions, can I substitute with hamstring curls? Hamstring curls are going to work the lower portion of the hamstring more towards the joint of the knee, the back of the knee. Whereas back extensions, if you're doing them the way that I like to program them, is with the straight back. You're trying to keep your back as straight as you can, and you're really trying to feel the hamstring stretch as you go down, and then you're contracting with the glutes and the hams. That one is going to be more specific to what we're doing in powerlifting. You're going to get better carryover to your comp lifts. Obviously, like it's not that specific. You're not dealing with a barbell. You're literally changing the angle. But you can, if you do them correctly, you don't need a lot of weight. I did it with body weight 2 days ago, and I'm still sore today. I thought I hurt myself, honestly. It was literally just really getting that good angle. And focusing on the back extension. It's called the back extension, but you're just using it to like really hit the hams. If you do it that way, then it's going to be more, I think, specific towards powerlifting. I think you should still do hamstring curls in relation to the back of the knee, because you can build any muscle that you can build on your body is going to help increase your leverage a little bit, right? Because as you get more coiled up, as you get more compressed, when I'm trying to build a world champion squat, right, or a big squat, we want to put as much muscle on the lower body as possible, because when we get super compressed in the bottom, we can pop up out of the hole just from our body, kind of like our hamstrings like running into our calves, right? So if we can create that tension, that artificial tension, you're really building a lot of tension behind the back of your knee sleeves. You can do that by having bigger hamstrings, even if it's like at a very, very small level where you can't really like measure it, right? Also, it can protect your knee joint. If you have more muscle on your legs, you're going to be more sturdy. You're going to be able to handle bigger weights. So yeah, that's that. So the main takeaway is hamstring curls are it works a little bit of a different area than doing a back extension, right? it's more of like a glute ham raise, but you're not bending the knee like you would in that movement. Okay, the next thing I have here is big jumps. So I had a lifter. She basically was just like taking like really big jumps from her last warm up to her like top weight. So like if I have a weight range on her program and she is trying to hit the top end number, let's say there's a 7 kilo difference between her last warm up and the top end number. Instead of like adjusting that last warm up, she just went from that last warm up straight to the top number. And then she ended up getting it, but it was like, it looked a lot harder than it needed to be. And I just was explaining, you want to kind of make, you're training your body to make jumps when you get closer to your top end from like a 4 to 6% to a 4 to 6% jump when you get above 90%. That's a pretty solid, baseline for people, and you can kind of use that. I mean, if you're in a meet, you're going to take attempts like that anyway. You could also do this like jumping week to week, like when you're adding increases to the weights that you're doing. 4 to 6% going from week to week is like probably going to be okay. 3% in some cases, but yeah, that is, you just want to make sure that you have to recalibrate everything. Like if you get stronger and you're used to doing like certain jumps, like you have to recalibrate that. Or if you're very fatigued, you have to recalibrate that. And if you don't do that, that's where we can have those situations where people are taking their last warm up and then they're trying to jump to something really big and then they don't hit it and then they feel bad and they get sad. And when in reality, it's just like very different. It's like very simple like choices to change and you'll be much better in terms of that. Next question is sinking worth it on bench? This person went into kind of detail about how a lot of big benchers use the sinking, especially for the women, And I'll say this, if you can get a super high arch and you can, first off, the arch is gonna help you like create a lot of stability. You're gonna bring your chest closer to the bar, so the distance that the bar has to travel is gonna be less. If you are competing in the IPF, you need to get your elbows low enough, so that sink is a nice way to check that box, right? You're gonna get your elbows low enough because you're sinking the bar deep into your chest. You're also taking some of the pressure off of the upper body muscles because your rib cage is literally pressing into the bar, which is gonna help take some resistance off of the bar in the bottom portion of the lift. I will say that it is a very technical way to bench, and you have to, the timing between pressing off your chest and when the weight becomes like very difficult, if you can time it to where the weight is usually going to be more difficult, your rib cage is assisting, and then when you press that weight off of your chest, if you're already at an advantageous point in the lift, like imagine doing a block pull in a sumo or the second portion of your bench where you're past the sticking point, if you can time that, like you can do some amazing things on the bench press. And I think it is, as you guys have seen with Alba, she's very good at this. I used to do this to some extent. I couldn't quite get the bar to that like lockout portion, but I could get it close enough to where I only needed so much strength. I mean, I have these like little tiny arms, right? And I was able to bench 475. So, I mean, it does take a lot of work. It is not something that a beginner is probably going to get out the gate. And if you have you need to have enough mobility. You need to have enough sort of like body English, you could call it, like a lot of like you need to use momentum correctly. And if you can do this correctly and you know what you're doing, it's going to take like a lot of work. And I would recommend like the first early portions of your career, you want to just be building strength. Like you could use a soft touch and just like build it that way and then switch over. You guys see what's happening with Russ's bench. We did soft touch for a long time, decided to add the sink. He exploded, right, on the bench. So I think it's worth it. It's something to try with any technique. Sinking, soft touch, close grip, wide grip, whatever. I think it's worth it if you're going to be doing the sport for a while to try everything. See what works best for you. Okay, next question. The difference between deloading and detraining. So I would say deloading is you're deloading in the context of having like some fatigue, intentional fatigue that was created through building your training over many, many weeks. And detraining is like you literally don't have fatigue. You don't have fatigue, and then you're not doing enough to like generate any kind of like growth. So maybe going into a meet, you want to deload because you've already like created all this like demand for growth, and now you need to rest so your body can actually grow, and then you can hit it on the platform. But then the week after the meet, you're detrained a little bit because although you were very strong on the platform, your stamina kind of went down. You maybe were not eating the right way. You're just not doing as much work, especially in those weeks leading up. So it's going to take a little while to kind of get you back to where you're strongest, right? So the big difference there is like one is like in the presence of like intentional, maybe unintentional fatigue, where usually after the deload you're going to feel stronger, and the detraining is that demand for growth is not there, so you're literally just like dissolving as time goes on, if that makes sense. All right, next question. I just have pain and injuries with training. Okay, so obviously like this could be like a very extensive topic, but they're essentially asking like, how do you train when there's like pain and little injuries and things like that? I will say for myself personally, I come from a football background. I push through all kinds of pain. And it's dangerous because I don't have that buffer of like, oh, I shouldn't push through this. I just do it. I just like kept going. And it allowed me to, it was really like one or two preps that I can think of where I probably I don't regret anything because I had a good meet, but I don't know if I would advise someone who doesn't really know their body to do this, because if you have a pec strain and you're going to a meet and you need to max out, you could tear your pec. You could really get hurt. And you just have to kind of know your limit. You have to understand what kind of pain you're dealing with. Is it soft tissue? Is it this? Is it that? Things can happen, especially for men when you're really, I mean, it can happen for girls too, but like for dudes, like we get to like these like super high, disgusting weights, that I think it could just break you, right? It could literally just like if you're squatting like 700, 800, 900 pounds, like that is not normal weight to have on your body, and the wrong position with that will snap you up. It's very different. If somebody fails like 300, 400 pounds, it's going to hurt, but you might be okay. If you guys remember Mikey, like 3 years ago, he tried to pull 800, I believe it was the second or third attempt, pulled something, right? Pulled it bad. It was like a really big injury and it took time. Stuff like that. I mean, if it happens in the moment and you didn't have anything ahead of time, I mean, it's just kind of like bad luck. But you just have to be, you don't ever want to get to that point. And if you're like deloading appropriately and you're kind of like planning the year out, and a lot of it comes down to like, the lifter has to be honest with the coach and like communicate like what is happening when things are creeping up. Because if you just try to be a tough guy and you like push through everything and then you're supposed to push for a meet, like you want to position yourself to where the body's fresh, everything feels good, everything's durable. And then you want to dose that stress in a way where obviously you're going to have to lift heavier weight. And anytime you're lifting heavy weight, there's going to be a risk of injury, but you have to do it in a way where like you're just about to run too hot. But before you get to that point, you take that deload, reset the body, and then do it again. And if you do that correctly, you're eating enough food. That's another thing too. We'll have instances where I'm pushing a lifter and the lifter's dieting with the nutritionist and we're not communicating and I don't know that. And I'm like, why are your training going bad? And the lifter wants to prove something to themselves and to me. So then they go heavy and then they get hurt. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to have all these things in check before you can do that. But I will say, if you want to deload appropriately so that you shouldn't have to deal with too many pains and injuries. Now, if it's your job and you have to go all out at like 3 meets in a row, 1 meet to get to Worlds, 1 meet at Worlds, and then Sheffield, like if you have to do that, that's tough, right? Because you're gonna literally have to go maximal 3 times throughout the year and you don't really have that much time to reset. You can do the best that you can, but you may need an extended period after that competition season, just like football players do, just like every literal like professional sport where they're like kind of resting. Our sport is just kind of spread out in a way where like we don't really have that luxury, and it adds up to a lot of stiffness and pain and stuff. I could literally go on this topic, but I will just say, listen to your body, deload correctly, stay hydrated, make sure you're eating enough calories, and you should be able to get through things in a way that is sustainable. So that being said, I gotta go to the gym now. I hope you guys are able to take something away from that. Let me know if you guys like this format. I'm also using this mic that Tina was so adamant and so gracious as to let me use. And she was like, you should use it. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. But at first I was like, no, I'm just gonna do the phone. Like, who cares? But anyway, you guys might care. If the mic sounds good, let me know. If you got something from this video, let me know. Links for various things that I support in the description, as always. We might do, if you guys are interested in a sweater drop, people started asking about it because it is that time of year, and if you guys want it, I'll do it. We got to meet next week. Then we rest in 6 weeks. Secret 6 weeks, and then we have Sheffield, and then it's going to be, if you guys are paying attention on Instagram, it's going to be one of the greatest, I think it's going to be the greatest meet of all time. Anyway, guys, see you in the next one. Peace.